Well, good morning, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Good morning and well, thank you. Thank you
It's
for
all,
inviting me today.
absolutely, it's always such a challenging question, I find. How are you, right? It just rolls off
Yes,
the tongue, but there's a lot of implication there.
totally. In
Yeah.
2020, how are you? I'm not sure. Depends on tomorrow's news cycle.
Truly.
Yeah.
So we came together this morning to talk about abundance mindset for business owners during this, what may feel like a time of scarcity. And before we get started, I just want to briefly kind of introduce who you are because everybody watching might not know. So, Dr. Kevin Bates, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and
Yes.
your role here at in the Tigard Chamber?
Yes. So my name is Kevin Bates. I own Symposium Coffee, and we, of course, have the location in Tigard at the bottom floor of the chamber building. Great partnership with the Tigard Chamber. So my role with the Tigard Chamber, as you asked, is I'm just a partner and a tenant of the building, but also an advocate for the chamber and the chamber dealings and the programs and such. And then we also have our flagship location in Sherwood. So, so yeah, um,
How long has your
that is
business
who I am.
How long has your business been open?
We have been in operation for almost 10 years. We started the Tigard location almost 7 years ago.
And could you share, we are clearly in an economic time frame that many business owners may have never experienced. And with that breadth of experience that you
Yeah.
have over at least 10 years, how does this feel for you as a business owner?
Of course, we started Symposium in a recession. And so we've seen hard times even in our start, almost 10 years ago, and that we were feeling the ripple effects of the 2019 economic crash. So honestly, we have seen hard times. We've seen very fruitful times as well. Probably the last handful of years have been hit and miss when it comes to difficulty and abundance. But definitely, this is like no other, as many people say. We've had to pivot more in the last, of course, that's the new word for 2020 is hashtag pivot, right? So we've pivoted more in the last probably 6, 7 months than I've ever had to in my really lifetime with my career in any aspect of my career. And so yeah, this has been a very difficult time and difficult for everyone, for every business. I would say even for those businesses that have been able to flourish in this kind of situation, to be able to pivot, innovate, and handle the influx of customers or sales or just expanding their tech or whatever they've had to do at such a rapid rate. It's definitely been a difficult time. So for us personally, yeah, we being in the restaurant industry, of course, as we know, the restaurant industry has taken, and the lodging and hospitality in general, industry caterers, venues, anybody that serves food really or drinks, bars, definitely have taken a huge hit over the last, well, since March and since the first shutdown. So, so I'm not saying that we've taken any more hit than anyone else. It's just we've just had to be creative in our context in the coffee industry of how to survive and actually grow. I wouldn't say we're at the thriving level. We are at the We've moved past the surviving level though, so we've been able to move into the growing, still stabilization level.
Well, from a chamber staff perspective, it's been I want to use the word inspirational because I'll just use it to watch you all, because as a community serving organization, it can feel challenging, and frankly some days it's downright disheartening what's happening to certain sectors of our business community. So when you came to us with this sort of concept, you came with this rallying cry for businesses impacted by the pandemic shutdown specifically. Can you tell me a little bit about where that started for you?
Yeah, it probably started when I read some statistics on business here in some recent reports about 100,000 businesses, for-profit businesses that have vanished off the nation's land. I mean, they're just gone. Those could be big and small. So some large companies just shut their doors and they are no longer. Secondly, like the nonprofit world, they don't even know how many organizations and nonprofit groups have vanished off the planet in this pandemic. They just call it an infinite number. So 100,000 businesses have vanished, and an infinite number of nonprofits have vanished. And so that's disheartening statistic, weighs on my life and heart and mind a lot. I think about the families that affected and have affected, still affect their children, their futures, their security, their careers, all have been rocked and disrupted. So just in the things that I've read over the last handful of months, the bad news, really motivated me to start seeking out answers and thinking through my own business and how are we going to survive, but how are we going to take care of our employees well? How are we going to take care of our customers well? How are we going to secure our financials well? Looking at just those three metrics and just working hard on in our business, no matter what. As businesses closed around us, we're like, okay, are we going to close? Do we just turn the keys into the bank? All those thoughts, of course, went to my head in March and April. But yeah, so that's where it started. Although I was unfortunately involved in a program called Goldman Sachs 10KSB. Mm-hmm. That started a couple of years ago when Debbie Molahan, the Tigard Chamber CEO, she nominated me actually to a program called the ICIC. And that program, of course, was an in-person program at the time. I know it's now virtual, and I know the chamber members are involved in that program, some of them. It was an in-person program when I took it. And so I was able to meet people, fly back east, go to their national conference. And in that national conference, I learned about their sister program, Goldman Sachs 10KSB. And David Solomon is the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and his team had put together in 2009 in the recession, so basically 10 years ago, a program that would help businesses emerge out of that recession in the midst of a lot of struggle, that they would be able to emerge out of that recession time. So they put that program together back then in the midst of a crisis. So it's very pertinent to me right now and to all the people in the cohorts, because we're right in the middle of another crisis, and the 10KSB program is, helping us through it today. So I learned about the program. I applied for the program. It is difficult to get in. There are some requirements that I had to meet and to increase and get to. And so I got to those goals and those requirements, and they let me into the program. Basically, it is a program that helps you put together a 5-year plan. That's the end game of the program, to put together a 5-year plan. But basically through the program, they walk you through all kinds of modules: finance, law, marketing, metrics. You're looking at your history, looking at your future, learning to put your financial trajectories, learning to do that well, combing through your finances, making sure all your ducks are in order, and your business is not just a homegrown, hey, I'm doing this in my home office on napkins, to a professional, saleable, marketable, bankable type business. So the program is excellent. It really has changed my life with business and in a lot of other aspects in the different areas that I work in and serve in. So it's really helped me in a lot of areas.
One of the pieces that comes to mind too is sustainable, right?
Yes.
Well,
So
you brought,
I was just going to say, in that program, I was offered a probably once in a lifetime opportunity to sit and be a part of a session, a Zoom call, with some key financial and corporate leaders. And that phone call, or that Zoom call, actually, I emerged out of that very inspired, very motivated, and really wanting to share that information, because I really saw it, just in the hour and a half that I was in that Zoom call. I saw the knowledge and the wisdom and the history of the people that were speaking really was relevant to today, could help Tigard small businesses, and both communities that I serve in Sherwood as well. I think that it can help a lot of people. So I just wanted to share it. I shared it with you, and I wanted to share it with as many people as possible. So that's why I came to you.
yeah. Well, we really see you as a community champion. So we're happy to provide that platform. Why don't we dive in? We've got 5 really thoughtful concepts that you brought forward. And the first one is the idea of doing the right thing even when it's hard. The concept that there's always something better about doing the next right thing, even if you don't want to.
Yes. So that was actually brought up by a woman named Mary Barra. And Mary Barra is the CEO for General Motors. The people involved in the meeting, I'll just name their names. Mike Bloomberg, those of you who know that he ran on the Democratic ticket, briefly. Warren Buffett, Mary Barra. Warren Buffett is, of course, the financier. He's the his business. I can't remember his business right now. Something Hathaway. I know it's there on the tip of my tongue. He runs his own finance business. And then David Solomon. David Solomon's the CEO of Goldman Sachs. So David Solomon actually is the ultimate leader of our program. And so his friends, his financial friends, he gathered together for this meeting. So the first idea, doing the right thing even when it's hard, that was brought to the table by Mary Barra because their whole company shifted. And they took on the mindset, yes, we have to keep building what we're building to sustain General Motors, but we also need to pivot to be a part of the solution. And they chose to build ventilators. And they tooled themselves to build, I can't remember how many tens of thousands of ventilators that they produced, but those ventilators will eventually go worldwide if they haven't already. So in her concept, in doing the right thing even when it's hard, making that decision, we can continue to build what we're building, cars and car parts, and just keep in our little circle, or we can be a part of solutions that are the right thing. And her concept was no matter what, just do the next right thing. And the next right thing for us is like small business owners, was looking at our employees, our vendors, our community of people that we interact with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to do business. What is the right thing, and how can we leverage our relationships to help do the next right thing, even if it's not our company? So for example, Mike Bloomberg gave the example in that portion. He said that his business, they hire a security company, and it's an outsourced security company, and they pay their bill on a monthly basis. And when they shut down and everyone went to work at home, they could make the choice to not pay that security company. Now, of course, he has a lot of money to be able to do this, and he's fortunate enough, but he paid those people directly as employees to keep them off of unemployment and to help, and he was given the means to do that. So he was just encouraging us as we see our vendors, if our vendors don't treat their employees correctly, when it comes to the pandemic, that we could step in and step in that gap and help do the next right thing and say, hey, we're customers of yours. We see this happening. What can we do to be a part of the solution? Because we want to have this relationship with you for a long term. But and we have seen, we have seen certain businesses out there maybe not necessarily treat their employees well during this time. So I'll give an example of how this happened to me. As I found out some place that I pay money to on a regular basis, they laid off their staff without any hope or any word of the intention of hiring them back. And so when I was talking to their employee, I said, are you being laid off right now? And she said, yes. I said, well, I'm hoping with the intention of being hired back. And they said they gave us no intention of hiring us back. So I went to the CEO and I said, hey,
Yeah.
I do business with you on a regular basis. And I just want to do the next right thing in my life here. And I just really want to encourage you to give your employees that you're laying off the hope of getting hired back and giving them that intention, at least the intention. I'm not saying that, telling people how to run their business, but that's what Mike Bloomberg was saying. It's like everyone has to work together to do the next right thing. Otherwise, our systems just break down and we end up on the other side of this pandemic. We're going to end up without vendors. We're going to end up without a supply chain. We're going to end up without, there's so many things that could break down if we're not all a part of that solution. So that was my example with my context of how I've implemented that. Very small. Most of my vendors are doing the right thing with their employees. Most of my vendors have treated their employees magnificently. But just little things, I've seen little things like, hey, could we help this out a little bit and give some encouragement in the right ways? So when it comes to PPP funds or EIDL loan funds or the funds that we're getting from bailout money, I'll call it, these bailout monies are supposed to be used for the right things. And I've heard stories of people not necessarily using them for the right things. And so I've taken upon myself a little bit to take on what Mike Bloomberg and Mary Barra said and say, hey, we really need to use these funds for the right things. Otherwise, we're going to end up in 2009 and all the CEOs are going to go buy vacation homes. And we just really don't need to be there again. So that was that first point, is just making sure that our community of people that we're interacting with, that we're doing the hard work. And sometimes that means getting over our fear of conflict. And sometimes that means stepping into things that maybe we don't feel like we are, or maybe we feel we're butting in or whatever, but we need to help the boats rise as the water rises. We need to help everyone rise in this occasion.
Were there any examples within your business where you felt, that pull of, do I have to? What were the right things that you did in your business?
Yeah, so making sure that all of our funding that we received from the government is used for the intention that it was given.
Yeah.
As I've watched other people maybe sometimes fudge here and there and make up things and no fault on anybody, no judgment, because a lot of people are just doing the very best that they can with what they've been given, and I understand that. But for me and my own personal conviction, just making sure that I am following the intention and the heart of the giving. I've been given a gift, with funding, I've been given this gift. What am I supposed to do with that? I was on the phone with Courtney Neron for about an hour and a half a couple of days ago, and just really encouraging her to run some things up the flagpole
Mhm.
when it comes to legislation and what's the next right thing, advocating for marginalized, advocating for people of color, advocating for women-owned businesses, as the system is kind of built for, the privileged, right? The system is built for the privileged. I took it in that conversation. I took on Mike Bloomberg's mentality. Okay, I need to do the next right thing, and help a congresswoman understand, state congresswoman understand, or representative rather, understand the next right thing. So those are two examples of what I've done. Besides, like when we've had to do layoffs,
Mhm.
to do those well, to
Yeah.
have serious conversations with them. The
Yeah.
next right thing for us was to lay two people off at the very right time and encourage them as quickly as possible to get on unemployment.
Mhm.
They could get in line properly.
Yeah.
So those are just some examples, and giving them the intention that we're hiring them back.
Mhm. Yeah,
This
because
is only for a season.
yeah. Well, let's see. The second point that you brought really dovetails nicely into this first one. It's the idea of when working together, you can always solve problems versus working separately, which
Right.
I'll say is a chamber community value all the way.
Yes.
I think I love hearing about the 10K SB program and the fact that it really started out of an economic crisis. And here we are 10 years later, back in an economic crisis, which we can debate on when it really started, right? And so the chamber community is very much the same. We build in times of prosperity and we hold together in times of challenges. So talk to me some about that.
Yeah, so that was brought up by Mike Bloomberg, and he has kind of a 3-part system to entrepreneurship. And his 3 key points to entrepreneurship are: first, you need to figure out what you can do that some people will like. So what can you do? Provide a service or build something or create something or make something that some people will like. And he says, not everyone will like it, but some people, you need to do something that some people will like. And then you need to learn to monetize it and turn that into a sale. And then we need to learn how to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
And protecting it, just protecting your invention or protecting your business in different ways different mechanisms that we have to protect our business. So in those 3 areas, there could be the potential of major problems. So making things, right, that some people will like, there's a lot of opinions there. There's a lot of, like, people have a lot of opinions about a lot of things that some people will like and some people will dislike, right? Turning that into monetizing it can create lots and lots of problems. And then protecting it can create lots of problems. And his thing was, any problem, using that simple 3-step entrepreneurship system, he says that any problems that we have, no matter what they are, can be solved if we work together versus separately. The problem that we have in a pandemic is, and I'll use your title, we live in scarcity over abundance. We feel like we're losing. We feel like the world is all going to die. We feel like the economy is going to just tank and crash. Scary times, and it's very easy to live in scarcity over abundance. But yet, in abundance, just because we're living, that's a gift. Like, we wake up every day and we have life. That's a gift. So that, in our attitude at this time, we need to find the things that we believe are abundance. And when we live in abundance, that means that we can share in abundance, and that means that we can work together better. Then he was using the pandemic, and in the pandemic, we find ourselves very isolated. We find ourselves separate. We find ourselves off in our own little corners. And what was really interesting, and I was inspired by his illustration, he said that his desk is on the same floor as everyone else's. It's the same size as everyone else's. They don't have glass walls or walls that separate their offices. They don't have rooms that they tuck themselves away in. Any meeting that he has is not some private secret meeting that he needs to have. And that was really challenging. I was like, wow, he just equalizes himself with everybody. His desk, and what's funny is he says when people take a tour of their company, they'll walk through and they'll point, well, that's where Mike Bloomberg sits.
Mhm.
They're like, well, why is it? Doesn't he have a big office? Like,
Yeah.
no, he just sits amongst the people because he wants to work with everybody. He wants to strategize with everybody. That's what's made his company successful through abundance or scarcity of economics. So,
Yeah.
so that was really inspiring to me. I think that working together is a simple statement mantra.
Mhm.
Doing it is a different story, because anytime you put two people in the room, you have two different opinions and you have the chance of disagreement and division. So just because we're opinionated people, so when we work separately, I can get a lot more done probably, just doing it
Yeah.
myself. But is it like community? Is it strategized together? Is it really what it could be? Is it the very best? And what he was talking about is working together, working through problems like pandemic. Nobody can solve that on their own.
Yeah.
And how that affects our business, nobody can solve that on their own.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like at Symposium, we just launched our new coffee line. That is a collaborative effort. That's not a Kevin Bates thing. It might have been an idea that I had, but that's not a Kevin Bates. It doesn't have my name on the bag, right?
Yeah.
It is a collaborative effort. All of our social media push right now and our marketing plan for the company, that's a collaborative effort. People are coming together for that cause, whether it be a photographer or social media coach or me or Jake, one of my business partners. Just anything that we're doing right now to pivot and to fill in the loss, right? As we've decreased in revenue during this time, to fill in those losses, all of that we have to work together to get done.
Well,
so yeah, that's basically the heart of what was said, and that's how we've implemented it here.
And it brings to mind for me some truths about being a business owner or an entrepreneur, is that on that base level, we all have a number of same needs. Energy. We all need the energy to get up in the morning and do our job, right? Wherever we pull that from. We all need customers. We all need sustainable processes. And so that's that space of non-competitive community that you can build and ask each other questions. And I love this chat with you today, because this is one of those times that I really feel that working together piece. And I love what you said about, you're not just collaborating within your business, you're collaborating outside of your business, you're collaborating with the community. And that does lead to sales for you, sales for a vendor, sales for another, community partner, which is, how we all get through this and thrive through it. So.
Yeah, I know a restaurateur right now that did a big an event, and I don't want to describe the event because I don't want to name her, but name the business. But she did this event and she made $50 off the event. That was her business profit. She paid herself as an employee. She paid everyone as employees. She bought from vendors. She bought the supplies needed for the event. They got paid. The grounds that she used, the event grounds, they got paid. So everyone got paid for this event, and including her as the business owner. Business profit was next to nothing, but it worked, and people were supplied with sustenance, and it was sustainable. So that's like, even though we're probably maybe in the survival / maybe growth mode, not thriving yet mode, I could say that we could do creative things working together to make sure that people are employed and people are their families are sustained. We can do creative things to help people, like this one example. You know, she didn't make a killing off of it, no money to reinvest in the company, but people had a job for a day. And that was just kind of a cool example.
Well, and that lasts too. It lasts beyond. That's an experience and a piece of safety for everyone involved there. You know, safety of heart, safety of community.
Yeah.
I love this next one. So excited to talk about it. So it's this concept that if you as the business owner, the business brand are not able to communicate your values and your vision effectively, it's like winking at a love interest in the dark. Can you talk more about that?
So that was Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is probably 90 some odd years old. And so to hear him say that was kind of funny to me. Basically, that's in reference of having great vision, great ideas, great values. And if you can't get people to understand you, if people don't understand you, then what are we doing? Right? We're just communicating, or we're trying to send signals in the dark and no one's seeing them, right? Nobody's hearing them if we're not able to communicate. Warren Buffett gave an amazing story about when he first got into business. The first thing he did was he took a speaking course to learn how to publicly speak. He was deathly afraid of public speaking, and so that was his first start. That's what he knew what to do. I've taken different courses on communication and how to communicate, effectively, clear and concise, and making sure that our great ideas and visions, are heard, our values are heard. Those tools are hard to implement sometimes, especially in a pandemic environment, because we become isolated again. We become closed in our fear, in our scarcity. We're afraid that the sky is falling, which for some it has, and then we stop communicating. So the encouragement there was people really want to know where we're going. And people will go where we go. And I've heard lots of examples of people that will do a seminar, right? And they'll be with 1,000 people. And the seminar leader will say, hey, we're going to do a little exercise and we're going to go outside, and they'll lead 1,000 people out into the parking lot. Now we can't do that right now, but they'll lead 1,000 people out into the parking lot. And the story that I've heard is the person had a megaphone in a box, and he stood up on the box as he was now 1,000 people in the parking lot, and he yelled at them all and said, people will go where you tell them to go. And that was his whole point. and like he says, well, some people probably got it, some people didn't get it. Some people were probably irritated that he wasted their time. But yet it's a huge illustration of people will literally go where you tell them to go. And so if you need to pivot your business online, if there's a marketplace idea online that you're moving towards, if there's a pivot in some other creative, innovative idea that you're developing, to get your community, your dashboard. My dashboard is my employees, my customers, and my finances. That's my dashboard, like top dials, right? So I look at my employees. Do my employees understand where I'm going? Is my vision clear with my employees? Are my values clear with my employees? And then I look at the customers. Are my values crystal clear to my employees, crystal clear to my customers? And then do my finances also speak my values, vision, and ideas? Am I putting the money and the resources and decreasing expenses in certain areas to increase investment in other areas? Do the finances speak? And are my finances listening I'll say that, listening to my
Mhm.
vision as well. Sometimes those things are off. Sometimes our employees understand it, but our customers don't, and our finances don't speak it. They're not listening to it. So that was just an encouragement by Warren Buffett of, even in the hardest times, we need to be very clear about our direction, and how that, what that looks like is different for everyone.
Yeah.
I have different ideas and vision and values than my good friend Travis at Curiosities. He
Mhm.
has vision and values, uh, and his circles, his dashboard. He needs to speak very clearly to his dashboard as I speak clearly, and it's going to be communicated differently in different concepts. So there's not like a reason for bringing up like Travis and me. There's not like some magic pill of communication that we can take that is a system of communication to
Mhm.
speak our values, because
Yeah.
his are going to be different than mine.
Well, and something to consider too in what you're sharing here that I think is really important for business owners to think about is that, so you establish where you're going, and maybe it's different from where you were going in January of 2020,
Yeah.
and to
Yes.
allow yourself the space and the time to then build that. Because and that's back to that abundance and scarcity, right? It may feel like scarcity when you pivot online and you launch your new platform and a few people show up, right?
Yeah.
It can feel like scarcity.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily. In times of, economic prosperity, you may see that as, oh, we're innovating. Yeah, it's normal that it takes a little bit of time to build. You're moving
Right.
into a building space.
Right.
And yeah, so that's where that communication really comes in to play, that you build by communicating and by directing and by inviting 1,000 people outside in the parking lot,
Right.
right? Takes some time
Right.
for everybody to get there. Not
Yeah.
everyone's
Yeah.
gonna, right?
Totally. Not everyone's
Right?
going to
Some
get there
people
at
have
the
to go
same
different
time.
routes.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So this next concept is also a ton of fun. I love laughing.
Yeah.
So it goes like this. Well, and I'll preface this too by saying what a time we live in. Here at the chamber, one of the things that it feels like for us as staff is we could wake up, not just wake up any day, but almost any moment of the day, and there could be another press conference happening with changes that are impacting the business community.
Yeah.
Those are thrust upon us. And now there's another side to that. There's advocacy. You mentioned that earlier, and the time you're spending on the phone with representatives to really get our voice across. If you read the chamber newsletter really regularly, you'll find there's opportunities to click a button, talk to your legislator, talk to your, the people making the decisions. So there is advocacy happening, but much of what's going on is just thrust upon the business community. And so there's a few ways to look at that. And here's this lovely way. So you can walk into a room and see a large pile of horse poop, right? And start screaming at everybody about this large, stinky pile of horse poop in the middle of your business. Right. Or you can start looking for the pony. Talk to us about it.
Okay. So that again was Mike Bloomberg and Mary Barra were speaking to that. And I don't know if you've ever heard Mike Bloomberg speak or Mary Barra, but either one of those people are incredible leaders in their businesses, and how they articulate themselves and how they see their business in the world is very positive. And I was really inspired in the midst of pandemic. It's kind of hard to see the world as positive. Mm-hmm. And so one of their things was environmental care, and that everybody on the planet needs to invest or think about or change and make their environmental care known. I found that very interesting, that everybody has the opportunity to do that right now and work together to make our environmental care known to the world, that this is what we're doing. This is our part. So we can look at the environment and say the environment is, a big pile of horse poop. And we can then look for that pony and say, well, we all can participate somehow, right? So that was one example that they used for it. Of course, the pandemic, that this is all in light of the pandemic of 2020. And this is a very hard concept when you're personally affected. This is not an easy venture to look for the pony. You are staring at a large house-filled pile of poop, and you're just trapped in the stink, right? You're trapped in the poop, and you don't know what to do. And so as they were speaking, they also were saying, this is a very difficult, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, just a very difficult venture to look for the opportunity and the innovation in the midst of a crisis. Yet, as entrepreneurs, small business owners, we were built for such a time as this. Right? So we look at crisis, and if we didn't have a business, right? If I didn't have Symposium and I was going through this crisis, right? And I was an entrepreneur like I am, I would look for that opportunity. Is there an opportunity? But because I have a business, right? Sometimes we throw lighter fluid on the existing flame. We go, this has to burn. We have to burn. We have to light the flame hotter and hotter and hotter. And pretty soon we just run out of lighter fluid, and the flame, just goes out. So, and we forget to innovate, right? We're so concerned about salvaging what we have that we forget to innovate. And so this thrusted us into literally probably a large chunk of time talking about innovation and how the pony in this metaphor is the innovation that we come up with. Warren Buffett was very strong in what he said here that I'll give us today. And this was really impactful. He was kind of course, the star of the show and had a lot to say, and had an apologetic, humble attitude about how, maybe he and his company, created some of the challenges that we have today, that his investments and stuff. And so he was very humble about his position and also the wind that has been on his back for his lifetime. And now we're in a headwind. And he was very humble with speaking to that. But it thrusted us into a conversation about innovation. And in the midst of crisis, all of us have taken decreases of revenue. And so Symposium has taken a decrease of revenue. I'll be honest and say we're about 30% down. I have no qualms about sharing that with people, that our revenue sales are about 30% down. We're about 36% down in visits. So clicks, right? People coming in and clicking that register. About 36% down of transactions. Yet we've cut expenses, we've trimmed back lots of different things to make it all work. So actually during the pandemic, I would say, that we are, what I'll say is surviving to growth, right? So we're moving in growth in our innovation. So we've been able to take some of our profits and push them towards filling in. We have that 70% where I can throw lighter fluid on that 70% and try to make it grow, right? And then face another shutdown again, like we are in this 2 weeks, and throw more lighter fluid on it after the 2 weeks. Or I can spend my time bettering these always, bettering the 70%, yet the 30%, how am I filling that in with the pony? What's the pony that I'm looking for? How am I going to find that pony and just care for that pony and innovate? Warren Buffett was very strong when he said the companies that are not innovating right now are destined to be on rocky ground for their future. That the companies that are not pivoting to innovation, to tech, to online platforms, to using different mechanisms of delivery to, changing office spaces to physical locations. They gave a litany of list of different innovations, but kind of like General Motors moving to building ventilators. That's to tool up for that. Yeah, it's a whole new product.
Whole new product. Yeah.
You'd have to get your engineers, your machinists, you'd have to get all those people involved in that creative process in order to innovate that direction. So he said that the companies that are not innovating right now are destined to be on rocky ground. What that spoke to me was I need to innovate. Now, in the stock market, I've been watching the last handful of days, and some of that right now is coming true. I didn't know if I was listening to a prophet last week, and then all of a sudden, but of course, these people are very involved in the stock exchange, and so of course they know probably the companies that are on rocky ground right now. But yeah, that has played out already. That the companies that couldn't, that wouldn't, and flat out refused to innovate are going to be on rocky ground. So that's what that means, is I can sit there and yell and scream at the people around me, be angry at the world, be angry at it's the vaccines are not fast enough. I can be angry at politics. I can be angry at people. I can just express a lot of anger for all the poop and spend all of my energy there. Yet we need to advocate for what's best what to do with the poop. But we also need to learn and develop new ways of providing our products, selling our products, providing our services rather, selling our products, and just pivoting hard, learning new ways to monetize what we, as Mike Bloomberg said in the beginning, we're creating a product that some people will like. How do we monetize it? Now we're struggling with monetizing because people are no longer walking into the store. People are not walking into places. The office is now stay at home orders, work from home. So how do we monetize our services and our products differently? That's a huge problem in the pandemic.
And
if we don't innovate, then we're in trouble.
Well, I'm really hearing an opportunity for creativity. And that sounds exhausting, I imagine.
Yes, it is.
I think what this brings to mind for me too is what's hard is that the poop is so distracting, right? And the stink is distracting. Because even if you decide you can turn away from the poop, the stink is still there. I love this.
It's there,
right?
It's right there in your face.
So this one is certainly about how do you stay focused as a business owner. And there's a piece in here too, and you really touched on it several times, about grief. There's so much grief in all of what's happened in 2020. And it can be hard. I love your lighter fluid analogy, because that's just grief. Let's just pour some tears on it. This is our baby. I don't want to let my baby go. And so how do you hold space for grief and then keep yourself focused? And you can do that with community. You can do that with some of the concepts that we've talked about previously. But okay.
I guess just saying one more thing about it with grief. What has happened in 2020 is horrendous. It's horrific what has happened. I'm only 48 years old. I've never seen anything like it. I've never been a part of and traveled anywhere in the world. I've been all over the world, and I've never really experienced anything quite like this, where disease has been rampant through community with like an unstoppable force. And the economy being so up and down like a wave. And what I mean by economy, I know that there's different levels of economy, like the stock market and big business and corporations, but yet boots on the ground, small business has been like a wave, in and out, and it's been very hard to navigate. So grief is real. 2020 has been, and this is why they said in the beginning that looking for the pony is not an easy venture.
Yeah.
That is not an easy task, because emotionally, the last year has been exhausting for so many people, and no matter what has gone on, like politically, or whatever our beliefs are in that, either sides of everything, whatever side you take on anything, it is exhausting. So the world, I think, is exhausted, and but yet we need to find it within ourselves and in our own entrepreneurial spirits. We have that spirit of innovation, and we need to begin to put that in a higher gear right now, because that long term, the market sector that left the building, right? Let's say I can pretend like in 2021, let's say vaccines come out. I've been given a word that certain companies, a part of my 10 KSB program, I've been kind of given the inside scoop on some companies. And I'll share it this way because I'm not allowed to share certain things. But there's certain companies there that have signed governmental contracts that they will be distributing the vaccine as early as the end of January. So and mass distribution. So we look January, February, March, let's say we start to see a vaccine that then, keeps us, let's say, the economy open, we're no longer in shutdown mode anymore. I can pretend like those people that left the building are going to come back in March. I can pretend. But yet, that's like lighter fluid on the same fire.
Yeah.
There's a certain percentage of people that have changed their shopping rhythms and where they put their money. And they have changed that, just like in wartime, just like in depression time. Those people were changed forever, for the rest of their life, right? And generationally, we have been affected by that season. So just like then, I believe now is there's certain percentages of people that have changed their shopping habits, but also where their money goes for the rest of their life. And that will affect us generationally.
I feel that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we need to innovate to capture those market sectors. There'll be new market sectors too. There'll be new markets that open up in March that we never even heard about, that we never even thought could exist. And are we going to be ready in our innovation to capture some of those markets as they open up?
All right, final concept, another great one. So this one is the idea that only when the tide goes out do you discover who's swimming. Is it naked or without a swimsuit?
Without a swimsuit.
Either.
We can say naked, yeah. Naked's still an okay word, I think. Yeah, so only when the tide goes out do you discover who is swimming naked. That was a concept that all of them kind of agreed to. That and this is where we run the risk of getting political, and I don't want to get political during this time. But we can all agree that our economy at the small business level, at the boots on the ground level, was not pandemic resistant. And so our economy was not as strong as a pandemic to be pandemic resistant. And so that's where that concept comes. They did say, and I'll just leave this for them, I'll quote them. They said that our economy in general, the big economy, was not as strong as it was played out to be. That's what they said, okay? So if we just come under that assumption, right, that certain sectors or the economy in general, whatever we believe, it was not pandemic resistant, let's just put it there. And we didn't realize how vulnerable we could be if a pandemic were to hit, and it did. And so this was a concept that Warren Buffett took and ran with. And he's old enough, he's 90 years old. And so being a kid basically in wartime and seeing World War II play out, and he gave a big wartime analogy, metaphor that I think is really important. And there's three things that that he brought up is the economy not being as strong as we thought. That's like Depression era. We enter into a war, concept 2, we enter into the war, and we all have ideas and maneuvers and battles we're making and enduring. We're losing, we're gaining, and it's like, okay, we lost here, but now we need to change, and we pivot. We lost there, so now we need to change and pivot over here. And so during war, we're constantly maneuvering and constantly like trying to win battles, and it's very difficult. But then concept 3 was, in all battles, at the very end, you rush the hill to win the war. We've been given signs of peace. He called the vaccines like signs of peace, where people like will hold up a flag going, okay, we have an answer. There's one answer here, and that's a vaccine. And we've, really pushed hard to get it. That's a sign of peace. But he gave this just big wartime analogy of rushing the hill at the very end to conquer the battle. And so Buffett is asking all small businesses to put it in high gear of innovation, pouring ourselves and our time and energy and the money that we have left, if any, pouring it into innovation, pivoting our businesses so that in the first quarter of 2020, we can rush the hill. Because the vaccine is coming. Yeah. What that means is this is going to not come to an end, but it's going to be more contained to the point that the economy is going to stabilize. Things are going to begin to increase. New markets are going to open that we've never even heard about before. And relating that back to like the .com era, who knew that was coming? Nobody knew that was coming. Who knew that, like we could actually land somebody on the moon back in the day, right? And so these new markets that turned into tech, that turned into .com, that turned into just a computerized era, who knew all that was going to happen? And the prediction is that's going to happen emerging out of this pandemic, is there's going to be so many new, unknown, very fresh, innovative ideas that come to the table that we need to be prepared to rush the hill with our, innovation. And we're taking this hill, we're going to conquer this. I was going to cuss there, but I won't. Conquer this thing. And as entrepreneurials, we're going to work hard, lead hard, communicate well, really like look for the pony, look for the opportunity, and really just take it. And then we can just like begin to flourish again and thrive. And that's where we want to be. We want to be in a thriving economy that is more resistant to crisis on the other side of this than before.
Absolutely.
So we might have thrived before, but yet we weren't resistant to certain things. One ball drops and we're, the bag of balls all fall. Yeah. So,
the piece too, I love these sort of 5 concepts we've touched on in our chat, and we'll kind of wrap it up here shortly. But I really think back to that community piece and how do we come together, because the tide has gone out and you look down and you're naked.
Yeah.
Your peer's naked, but somebody over there got a swimsuit. And what comes to mind for me, and I think Sean at Sean Gardner Dancing.
Yeah.
I've had the honor of getting to talk with Sean ongoing throughout this crisis. And what's been frustrating though about it is that at every turn, her business has been unable and ineligible for support for this or support for that. And so how do we as a community really start to understand that, yes, there's a couple swimsuits being passed out, right? But that's it, potentially. And so it really, this one, I love it because it really ties it all together. That idea that you talked about at the start about doing the next right thing, sticking together as a community, solving problems, and how do we not leave each other behind, if possible, and Well, Kevin,
If I could speak to that just to
yeah,
close,
please do, please do.
and this will be my last thought. There will be businesses that close, and that's going to be tragic. That affects families, that affects children, that affects future, and it's going to be tragic.
Yeah.
Community. It's never fun to watch somebody close, even if they're your direct competitor. It's not fun. There will be new businesses that emerge out of all of this, and there'll be new thriving businesses that capture new markets. But during this time, if I could encourage every single person to look at their neighboring business, and to say, how can I dress you? If I could use the metaphor,
we'll stick with it.
how can I give you something that would help you be stronger? Can I share something with you? Can I support your business? Can I change from using a big corporate idea to a small business idea? Can I make those shifts within my own business? Can my suppliers turn more local? That I use suppliers that are my neighbors. I'm going to use suppliers that actually, I know their families and their friends. Buying, like during this holiday season, the chamber has a marketplace. The city of Tigard has a marketplace. The city of Sherwood is doing a gift card discount program where you can buy gift cards at the Sherwood Chamber and you get them at a discount, and a company has come alongside and partnered with that idea. There's so many avenues of shopping at the local small business level, whether it be retail, holiday shopping, services offered, where you're going to get your dinner tonight, where you're going to get your fried chicken, whatever it is, that we have the opportunity to make a choice. And that choice is, am I just going to choose the easiest option with the least resistance, or am I going to go help a family? And I think that during this time, as some swimsuits have been passed out with government funding and some didn't get some, I think we have the opportunity to help dress our neighbors.
That's our power.
That is the power of small business, and it's the power of community. And I think that we need to look in our community. I'll close with this: looking within our community and really looking at the tools that we have to combat real crisis. And one of the tools that we have is we can support and we can shift our monies into more of a local small business level. And I think that that's crucial right now, that we look across the street and we say, how can I support that person today?
And that is abundance in times of scarcity.
It
is.
Because
it lives within us and the power that we hold, and really owning that.
Yes.
Well, Kevin, I have a couple of thank yous for you. I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your compassion. I want to thank you for your vulnerability. I love having you as a chamber member, but I also love having you as a member of the business community. And I live and work here in Tigard, and so you're also a part of my personal community. And I just want to say thank you so much for having this conversation with us today.
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you to the chamber for allowing the opportunity, and also just being a community. You tie community together. You bring community together in different ways and for different times. And I'm really thankful that you've been kind of a hub for me to walk upstairs and say, hey, I need some help. But also just to be, a sounding board to some and a resource to others, and a guide. We all need guides right now. You've been a guide for many, and I'm very, very, very thankful for that. So
thank you.
Be blessed today. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.